I clutched the velvet ring box tightly inside my jacket pocket, my pulse racing as I walked across the polished marble floor of the rooftop restaurant. The glowing Manhattan skyline stretched out beyond the glass railing, breathtaking and clear. For 3 full years, I had hidden my real family identity, living as a humble automotive mechanic to ensure the woman I loved cared for me rather than my family's multi-billion-dollar fortune. Tonight was supposed to be the moment I asked Chloe Sterling to be my wife. I had spent 3 months of my mechanic's salary buying a modest, genuine diamond ring, wanting everything to feel completely real. Ethan, a harsh voice cut through the soft ambient jazz music. What on earth are you doing here? I turned toward the corner booth, where Chloe sat surrounded by 4 of her wealthy friends. Sitting right beside her, his arm draped casually over the back of her leather seat, was Bradford Vance. Bradford was a notorious trust fund socialite whose father ran Vance Financial. Happy anniversary, Chloe, I said, forcing a gentle smile as I stepped toward her table. I know this place is way outside my usual budget, but I wanted to celebrate our 3 years together somewhere special. I saved up for months so we could have dinner here. Chloe didn't smile. Her eyes narrowed into cold, disgust-filled slits as she looked down at my simple dark suit and faded leather shoes. Are you serious right now, Ethan? Chloe scoffed loudly, standing up from the booth. Her sharp voice attracted the immediate attention of surrounding diners. You saved up for months just to buy a single dinner at a place Bradford visits 3 times a week. Do you have any idea how embarrassing you look? Chloe, please, I said quietly, feeling a sudden chill run through my chest. We've been together for 3 years. I worked overtime every weekend so I could bring you here and give you this. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the small blue velvet box, and opened it carefully, revealing the delicate diamond ring inside. Will you marry me, Chloe? I asked, looking directly into her eyes. Bradford burst into loud, mocking laughter, slapping his hand against the polished wood table. Is that a joke? Look at the size of that tiny stone. Hey, buddy, did you pull that out of a quarter gumball machine at the garage? The entire table broke into high-pitched giggles. Chloe's face turned bright red with pure anger as she stared at the open box. Close that ridiculous box right now, Ethan, Chloe hissed angrily, stepping closer to me. You are utterly pathetic. You really thought a small-town mechanic with a grease-stained income could keep a girl like me satisfied forever? I gave you everything I had, Chloe, I said, my voice trembling slightly as I tried to process her sudden cruelty. Every spare dollar, every drop of my time. I listened to your dreams, supported your boutique, and stood by you when you had nothing. And that was your job, Chloe shouted, drawing the attention of the entire rooftop dining room. Guests at nearby tables stopped eating, turning around to watch the scene unfold. You were just a temporary distraction while I waited for a real man to notice me. Look at Bradford. He owns 3 sports cars, lives in a penthouse, and comes from real Manhattan royalty. He's a fraud, Chloe, I warned firmly, looking past her at Bradford's arrogant smirk. He doesn't care about you. He uses people. At least he has money to use people with. Chloe yelled back, rolling her eyes in absolute contempt. You are just a penniless loser, Ethan. You've held me back from high society for 3 whole years. I am completely sick and tired of pretending to be happy with discount dinners, cheap gifts, and a man who smells like engine oil. She reached down to her left hand, unclasped the silver promise ring I had given her on our first anniversary, and threw it directly into my water glass with a sharp clink. We are completely finished, Chloe announced loudly, stepping right into Bradford's open arm. Bradford pulled her tight against his side, kissing her cheek while staring at me with a victorious, sneering grin. Don't ever call me again. Go back to your broken garage where you belong. You heard the lady mechanic, Bradford sneered, motioning toward the entrance. Get lost before I call the building manager and have security throw you down the fire escape like the trash you are. A wave of loud laughter rippled across the surrounding tables. People pulled out their phones, recording my humiliation as I stood isolated in the center of the restaurant. I stood completely still, looking at the woman I had cherished for 3 years. The heartbreak inside me didn't make me cry. It froze into something solid, sharp, and unbreakable. The humble test was over. The illusion was completely shattered. "So this is who you really are, Chloe," I said quietly, my voice dropping into a calm, icy tone that made her smirk falter for a brief second. "Don't act like a victim, Ethan," she spat back, crossing her arms defensively. "You're nothing. Now leave." Instead of turning toward the exit, I reached into the inner lining of my jacket and pulled out a sleek, black satellite phone, a device connected directly to the central military-grade network of Cole Enterprise Holdings. "What is that ancient thing?" Bradford laughed mockingly. "A walkie-talkie? What are you going to do, call a tow truck?" Ignoring his words entirely, I pressed the primary speed dial button and raised the encrypted receiver to my ear. The connection clicked instantly on the second ring. "Executive Line Alpha." A crisp, disciplined voice answered instantly over the secure speaker. "We have your location tracked, Chairman Cole." "What are your orders?" "Marcus," I said, my voice echoing clearly over the silent restaurant as I locked eyes with Chloe. "Initiate full executive protocol immediately. I am ending my field sabbatical at the rooftop terrace." "Understood, Chairman," Marcus replied firmly. "Security detail is 2 minutes away." "Did you hear him?" Bradford bellowed, his loud voice ringing across the rooftop terrace as he burst into hysterical laughter. "He called his little friend Marcus. What a terrifying mechanic." Chloe snickered loudly, nestling closer against Bradford's side. "Ethan, you are making yourself look even more ridiculous. Just accept that you're a loser and leave before you get arrested for disturbing the peace." "I am giving you one last chance to apologize, Chloe," I said, keeping my phone held steady in my hand as I watched her closely. "Not for rejecting me, but for disrespecting 3 years of total honesty and loyalty." "Apologize to you?" Chloe laughed harshly, rolling her eyes in utter disgust. "In your dreams, grease monkey. I don't apologize to peasants." "Hey, manager," Bradford yelled across the room, snapping his fingers disrespectfully at the head host standing near the bar. "Get over here right now. Throw this trash out of my sight before I cancel my VIP membership." The restaurant manager rushed toward our table, nodding nervously. "Right away, Mr. Vance. I am so sorry for this inconvenience, sir." He turned to me, pointing toward the elevators with a stern look. "Sir, you need to leave the premises immediately, or I will call the police." "You won't need to call anyone," I replied quietly. "Look out the window." Before the manager could grab my arm, the loud screeching of tires echoed from the street below. Bright xenon headlights flooded the glass entrance of the skyscraper. 3 pitch-black, armored SUVs roared up to the valet stand, completely blocking the entrance lane. "What the hell is going on down there?" Bradford muttered, his arrogant smirk fading as he leaned over the balcony glass to look down. The elevator doors at the back of the rooftop dining room slid open with a sharp, heavy chime. 5 tall men stepped out onto the marble floor. They wore tailored black tactical suits, dark sunglasses, and earpieces. Leading them was a broad-shouldered man with a scar running across his jawline. It was Marcus Stone, my head of security. The restaurant fell into dead silence. The manager froze in place, his mouth hanging open in complete shock. Marcus scanned the dining room with sharp, military eyes until his gaze locked onto me. He marched across the terrace with brisk, perfectly synchronized steps, his guards forming a protective perimeter around our table. "Hey, what is the meaning of this?" Bradford shouted, taking an instinctive step backward. "This is a private club." Marcus completely ignored Bradford. He stopped precisely 3 feet in front of me, stood at rigid attention, and bowed deeply from his waist. "Executive Chairman Cole." Marcus spoke loudly, his deep, booming voice echoing across every corner of the silent restaurant. "Forgive our delay, sir. Secure perimeter established in 90 seconds. The fleet is waiting downstairs." Gasping erupted across every surrounding table. The entire room went completely still. "Chairman Cole," Chloe stammered, her voice shaking violently as her face drained of all color. "Marcus, who are you calling Chairman?" "This is Ethan. He works at an auto repair shop." Marcus turned his head slightly, glaring at Chloe with cold disdain. "You are addressing Ethan Cole, sole heir and executive chairman of Cole Enterprise Holdings. Control your tone, woman." Cole Enterprises? Bradford gasped, his eyes widening in pure horror as his hands began to tremble. The multi-billion-dollar energy conglomerate. No, no, that's impossible. Cole Enterprises owns half of Manhattan. Marcus reached into his suit jacket, pulled out a sleek, titanium-encased tablet, and presented it to me with both hands. Your encrypted network access is restored, Chairman. Your grandfather, Nathaniel Cole, has officially cleared your field sabbatical status. Full corporate authority is back in your hands. Thank you, Marcus, I said calmly, taking the tablet and swiping my thumb across the biometric scanner. The screen instantly lit up, displaying active financial portfolios worth billions of dollars alongside live security feeds of my global assets. I looked over at the restaurant manager, who was now trembling so hard he could barely stand upright. "Yes, sir," the manager stammered, dropping to his knees on the marble floor. "Mr. Cole, I am so sorry. I didn't know who you were. Please, don't destroy my career." "Get up," I said softly, my voice devoid of any emotion. "You were just following a rich bully's orders." Chloe took a timid step toward me, reaching her trembling hand out. "Ethan, baby, is this some kind of prank? You're a billionaire? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted a woman who loved me for who I was, Chloe," I answered, looking down at her reaching hand with absolute coldness. "Not a shallow parasite who trades human hearts for country club memberships." "Ethan, please," Chloe cried out, tears spilling over her mascara as she tried to grasp my arm. "I was just confused. I didn't mean any of those things. You know I love you. I was just stressed out." "Don't touch him," Marcus barked, stepping directly between Chloe and me, his heavy hand resting near his side holster. "Bradford, do something," Chloe shrieked, turning toward her new boyfriend in desperation. "Tell them they can't threaten us." Bradford backed away, hiding behind two of his friends with a terrified look on his face. "Stay away from me, Chloe. I don't know you." "Mr. Cole, I swear I didn't know it was you. My father's company works with Cole Enterprises. Please don't ruin my family." Marcus reached into his pocket and produced a heavy set of platinum keys bearing the embossed crest of a custom Maybach. He placed them gently into my right palm. "Your armored Maybach guard is waiting at the front entrance, Chairman," Marcus reported dutifully. "Shall I have the team clear these people out of your way?" "No need, Marcus," I said, sliding the keys into my pocket. "They have already cleared themselves out." Chloe fell to her knees on the floor, weeping hysterically and grabbing at the bottom of my trousers. "Ethan, please, give me another chance. I'll do anything. Please don't leave me." I looked down into her bloodshot, tear-filled eyes one last time. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I simply stepped back out of her reach, letting her hands fall onto the cold marble floor. Turning my back on her, I walked toward the private elevator surrounded by my tactical detail, leaving the quiet rooftop terrace behind without saying another word. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my private Manhattan penthouse suite, looking down at the city grid. The leather mechanic jacket was gone, replaced by a tailored silk robe. Marcus had placed my encrypted corporate phone on the glass coffee table, where it buzzed quietly with endless executive alerts. I took a deep breath, letting 3 years of humble civilian life melt away into the cold reality of my true position. "You always did look better in high thread counts, Ethan," a crisp, confident voice called out from the doorway. I turned around to see Victoria Thorne walking across the marble living room floor. She looked sharp in her charcoal corporate dress, holding a leather binder stuffed with thick legal dossiers. Victoria was my chief corporate attorney and childhood best friend, the only person outside my grandfather who knew about my long-term sabbatical. "Victoria," I said, offering a tired smile, "I take it Marcus informed you about tonight's disaster at the rooftop terrace?" "He gave me a full tactical report," Victoria replied, sitting down on the Italian leather sofa and laying out the files. "I must say, Ethan, I warned you 3 years ago. Chloe Sterling was never in love with your soul. She was just biding her time until a higher bidder came along." "You were right, as usual," I admitted, sitting across from her with a quiet sigh. "I really thought she was different. I thought if I hid my money, I could build something genuine with her. Instead, she threw my promise ring into a glass of water and called me a penniless loser in front of 50 people. Well, her timing is almost poetically stupid, Victoria said, sliding a thick blue folder toward me. Because while she thinks she traded a broke mechanic for a billionaire socialite, she actually just tied herself to a sinking ship. I opened the dossier, skimming through pages of financial audits and bank transfers. What am I looking at? The internal accounting books of Vance Financial, Victoria explained, pointing to a highlighted section. Bradford Vance's father, Julian Vance, has been hiding massive operational losses for 6 months. Their hedge fund is completely toxic. They owe $70 million to offshore creditors, and their primary credit line expires next week. So Bradford's whole high society lifestyle is a complete illusion? I asked, raising an eyebrow. A total lie, Victoria confirmed firmly. Bradford is using fake credit accounts and stolen family funds to keep up appearances. Julian Vance is desperately searching for an emergency bailout. In fact, his firm filed an urgent funding request with Cole Enterprise Holdings yesterday afternoon. They asked Cole Enterprises for money? I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. The sheer irony of this situation is incredible. Julian doesn't know you own the firm, Ethan, Victoria reminded me with a smirk. He thinks he's negotiating with your grandfather's board of directors. If you sign that denial paper, Vance Financial goes under by Friday. Before I could answer, my personal phone rang on the table. The screen displayed an unlisted number from the outer boroughs. Are you going to answer that? Victoria asked, watching me closely. It might be Chloe calling to beg. No, I said, recognizing the caller ID digits. This isn't Chloe. I swiped the screen open and pressed the receiver to my ear. Hello? Ethan, a soft, trembling voice answered over the line, punctuated by quiet sniffling. Is that really you? Evelyn. I recognized the voice immediately. It was Evelyn Sterling, Chloe's 19-year-old sister. Why are you crying? Is everything okay? I am so sorry, Ethan. Evelyn sobbed out, her voice filled with genuine shame and heartbreak. I just saw Chloe's social media posts. She's posting videos boasting about how she dumped a broke garage mechanic to join Bradford Vance's penthouse party in the Hamptons. She's saying terrible things about you. You don't need to apologize for your sister's actions, Evelyn. I said gently, softening my tone. You've always been kind to me. It's not fair. Evelyn wept, her voice cracking over the line. You treated her like a queen for 3 whole years. You fixed my car for free when I couldn't afford parts. You bought Mom her heart medication when our family was struggling. Chloe is completely heartless, Ethan. She traded a good man for a bunch of fake rich people who don't care about her. Evelyn, listen to me. I replied calmly. You don't have to worry about me anymore. I am completely fine. She doesn't deserve you, Ethan, Evelyn said firmly, wiping her tears. I just wanted to make sure you were safe. Please don't let her cruelty destroy your heart. You deserve someone who sees how wonderful you truly are. Thank you, Evelyn, I said sincerely. Your words mean a lot to me right now. Take care of yourself, okay? I will, she murmured softly. Goodbye, Ethan. I disconnected the call, placing the phone face down on the glass surface. Victoria watched me from across the table, her dark eyes filled with a mixture of empathy and quiet determination. Evelyn always had a good heart, Victoria remarked softly. Unlike her sister, Chloe is currently in the Hamptons celebrating her new lifestyle with Bradford, I said, leaning back against the couch and looking at the Vance Financial dossier. She thinks she won, Victoria. She thinks she escaped a life of poverty, Victoria corrected, opening her pen case and presenting me with an executive fountain pen. She has no idea that the man she mocked holds the financial survival of her new boyfriend's entire family in his hands. What is our exact holding position in Vance Financial's debt? I asked, uncapping the pen. Cole Enterprises owns 40% of their primary corporate bonds, Victoria stated smoothly. If you request an immediate capital audit, their shares will plummet 50% by tomorrow morning. Then schedule an emergency contract review for tomorrow afternoon. I instructed, my voice dropping into a cold, decisive tone. Invite Julian Vance and his son to my corporate office. Let's see how long Bradford's illusion lasts when reality hits. I stood at the edge of my corporate office, looking at the glowing monitors spread across my desk. By 8 o'clock in the morning, Manhattan's financial elite were already buzzing about my return. Headlines across major business networks questioned what Cole Enterprise Holdings would do next now that I was back at the helm. "You should see social media right now, Ethan," Victoria said, walking into my office with a tablet in her hand. "The entire city is talking about your reappearance at the rooftop terrace." "Does Chloe know yet?" I asked, turning away from the window to look at her. "Not at all," Victoria laughed softly, tapping the glass screen. "She actually made a new post an hour ago from Bradford's penthouse balcony in the Hamptons. She called your security detail a cheap rented stunt. She genuinely believes you spent your life savings hiring actors just to embarrass her after she dumped you." "A rented stunt?" I shook my head, a bitter smile crossing my lips. She truly sees only what her ego allows her to see. She really thinks I am still that broke mechanic counting pennies. "Let her believe it for a little while longer," Victoria said, her tone turning sharp and professional. "It will make the reality check hit her so much harder." Meanwhile, Bradford's father is currently panicking. "Did Julian Vance call the corporate desk again?" I asked. "He has called 7 times since 7 in the morning," Victoria confirmed, laying a blue file on my desk. "Julian is practically begging for an emergency board meeting. Vance Financial needs a $50 million emergency line of credit from us before the stock market closes today. If we don't approve the funding, their major creditors will seize their assets by tomorrow morning." Before I could answer, my desk phone chimed with an internal line connection. I pressed the speaker button. "Chairman Cole," my secretary's voice came through clearly. "I have Julian Vance on line 1. He insists it is a matter of life and death for his company." "Put him through, Sarah," I instructed smoothly, leaning forward over my desk. A sharp click sounded over the speaker, followed immediately by the anxious, fast-paced voice of an older man. "Hello? Is this the office of Chairman Cole?" Julian Vance pleaded, his voice trembling with hidden desperation. "Please tell me I am speaking directly to the chairman." "You are speaking to the executive chairman, Mr. Vance," I said, keeping my tone deep, calm, and strictly professional. "I understand Vance Financial is requesting an urgent capital infusion of $50 million from my firm." Yes, Chairman Cole." Julian exhaled deeply, sounding as if a massive weight had just been lifted from his chest. "Our firm is facing a short-term liquidity issue due to sudden market shifts. We have worked closely with Cole Enterprise Holdings for over a decade. This $50 million credit line will bridge our gap and secure our future operations. I assure you, our underlying business is rock solid." "Your underlying business looks quite fragile according to our internal audits, Mr. Vance," I countered coolly. "Your debt-to-equity ratio is completely out of balance, and your firm has been hiding offshore liabilities for 6 months." Silence heavy as lead hung over the speaker for 3 agonizing seconds. "Mr. Cole, please," Julian stammered, his composure completely breaking down over the line. "I swear to you, we can restructure everything. My son, Bradford, is taking over our social relations team, and we are aligning with high-profile families. We just need this contract signed today. If Cole Enterprises turns us away, we are completely finished." "I don't sign $50 million contracts over a telephone line, Julian," I stated firmly, my voice cutting through his panic like a steel blade. "I require an in-person review." "Of course, anything you want," Julian agreed instantly. "I can be at your corporate tower in 2 hours. Bring your son with you," I commanded coldly. "And bring your primary legal counsel. I want everyone involved in your family's management present at the table." "Yes, sir. Absolutely," Julian responded eagerly, completely unaware of who was sitting on the other end of the line. "Bradford is currently at our Hamptons estate, but I will have him drive back to the city right away. He will bring his fiancée, Chloe, as well to show our family stability. We will be in your boardroom at 2 o'clock sharp. I look forward to meeting your family, Mr. Vance," I said, a slow, cold smile forming on my face. "Do not be late." I pressed the button, cutting off the call before Julian could utter another word. Victoria leaned against my desk, looking at me with absolute admiration and a sharp, calculating glint in her eyes. "He has no idea, does he?" Victoria asked, chuckling softly under her breath. He actually thinks he is coming here to secure a massive financial savior. He thinks he is walking into a life raft, I said, walking toward the window to look out over the city skyline. He doesn't realize he is walking straight into his family's trial. Are you ready for this, Ethan? Victoria asked softly, her voice dropping into a gentle, supportive tone. Seeing Chloe again so soon after what she did to you yesterday? Yesterday, I was a man who genuinely cared about a woman who proved herself to be completely heartless. I answered, turning back to face Victoria with total clarity in my eyes. Today, I am the chairman of Cole Enterprises. I feel no anger toward her anymore, Victoria. I only feel the responsibility of delivering exact justice. Julian is bringing Bradford and Chloe right into your trap, Victoria said, closing her leather notebook with a firm snap. I will have Marcus place security at every boardroom exit. They won't be able to run once the truth comes out. Let them come, I said, settling back into my leather chair. It's time to show Bradford and Chloe what happens when their illusory kingdom crumbles into dust. Ah, good afternoon, Julian called out eagerly, striding toward the center of the room. We are deeply honored to meet the leadership of Cole Enterprise Holdings. I brought my son, Bradford, and his lovely fiancée, Chloe Sterling. Julian's voice trailed off completely. His steps stuttered to a halt in the middle of the room. Chloe's eyes locked onto me sitting at the head of the table. Her arrogant smile vanished instantly. Her jaw dropped open, and the color drained from her face so fast she looked like she might faint onto the floor. Ethan? Chloe gasped, her voice coming out as a choked, horrified whisper. What? What are you doing here? Why are you sitting in that chair? Bradford froze dead in his tracks, his eyes bulging in absolute shock. You, the mechanic from last night? Why the hell are you sitting at the chairman's table? Watch your tongue, boy, Marcus barked sharply, stepping out from the shadow of the doorway, his hand resting firmly on his holster. Bradford, shut up, Julian shouted, turning to his son in a sudden panic, his voice cracking with utter terror. What do you mean, mechanic? Who is this man? I slowly leaned forward, resting my elbows on the polished glass surface and lacing my fingers together. The legal team sat in total silence beside me, watching the scene unfold with sharp, professional detachment. Welcome to Cole Enterprise Holdings, Julian, I said, my voice smooth, calm, and ice-cold. I am Ethan Cole, executive chairman and sole owner of this corporation. No, this is a lie, Chloe screamed out, shaking her head hysterically as she pointed a trembling finger at me. Julian, he's lying. He's an automotive mechanic. He worked at a garage in Brooklyn for 3 years. He couldn't even afford a decent dinner last night. He rented those security guards to embarrass us. Silence, Chloe, Victoria spoke up sharply, stepping forward with a thick legal dossier. Ethan Cole's identity is certified by the Federal Trade Board and Global Banking Authority. You are speaking to the head of an $80 billion energy empire. Chloe stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth as tears instantly welled in her eyes. 80 billion? Ethan, Bradford stammered, his face turning ghostly pale as his arrogant posture completely collapsed. Mr. Cole, last night at the restaurant, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know who you were. You didn't know who I was, Bradford. I agreed softly, looking at him with absolute disdain. So you thought it was completely acceptable to humiliate a man you believed had less money than you. You thought you could step on someone just because you wore a designer suit bought with your father's credit line. Chairman Cole, please. Julian fell to his knees on the carpet, clutching his hands together in desperate plea. My son is a fool. He is an absolute idiot. Please, do not punish my entire family's corporation because of his brainless arrogance. Julian, get up, I commanded coldly, pulling a red folder from beneath my desk pad. We aren't here to discuss your son's terrible manners. We are here to discuss the $50 million emergency loan you begged me for this morning. Chloe stood frozen in absolute terror, looking back and forth between Bradford's trembling frame, his begging father, and me. The cruel mask she wore last night was completely stripped away, leaving behind nothing but pure, unadulterated regret. I stood in the center of the mahogany boardroom, staring down at the thick legal documents laid across the glass table. The heavy double doors opened, and my grandfather, Nathaniel Cole, walked into the room with a firm, steady stride despite his advanced age. His silver hair and sharp eyes commanded absolute authority. "Ethan," my grandfather said, stopping beside me and placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. "You look like a Cole today." "I feel like one now, grandfather," I replied, looking him dead in the eye. "The 3-year test is officially over." "Good," Nathaniel said firmly, nodding toward the head of the boardroom table. "I watched the footage from that rooftop restaurant last night. A lesser man would have lost his temper, but you stayed composed. You allowed her to reveal her true nature completely on her own." "She made her choice, grandfather," I said quietly. "I offered her a genuine life, and she traded it for cheap status. And now she must face the consequences of that choice," Nathaniel stated, reaching into his inner suit pocket to pull out a gold pen alongside an official corporate decree. "Before Julian Vance arrives, we finalize your authority. Today, I am officially transferring my remaining 30% controlling voting shares directly into your portfolio. Cole Enterprise Holdings is entirely yours, Ethan. Do not let sentimentality weaken your hand when executing justice." "I won't hesitate, grandfather," I promised, taking the pen and signing my signature across the bottom line. "Julian Vance's firm has been operating on borrowed time and fraudulent books. I will not allow them to leech off our legacy." "That is my grandson," Nathaniel smiled grimly, taking the signed document back. "I will be watching the proceedings from the executive observatory. Show them how a real leader handles predators." 10 minutes after my grandfather departed, Victoria stepped into the boardroom, checking her watch. "Julian Vance has arrived on the top floor, Ethan," Victoria reported, a tight, expectant smile playing on her lips. "He brought Bradford along, and just as we predicted, Bradford dragged Chloe right beside him." "Did they say anything in the lobby?" I asked, adjusting my tailored cufflinks. "Bradford was bragging to the reception staff, claiming his family was about to seal a historic partnership with the owner of Cole Enterprises," Victoria chuckled softly. "And Chloe was arm in arm with him, strutting around like she already owned the building." "Let them walk in," I instructed, sitting down at the head of the long glass table. "Marcus, secure the doors as soon as they enter." "Understood, Chairman," Marcus replied from the doorway, bowing his head slightly before signaling his tactical team. A moment later, the double doors swung open wide. Julian Vance rushed in first, adjusting his silk tie nervously. Right behind him came Bradford, looking smug in a designer navy suit, holding Chloe's hand tightly. Chloe wore an expensive white designer dress, her head held high as she scanned the grand room, expecting to see an elderly billionaire sitting at the desk. Julian Vance slowly stood up from the floor, his hands trembling as he bowed respectfully toward the head of the table. "Chairman Cole, I beg you to hear me out. My company has decades of prestige. Whatever personal offense my foolish son committed last night, please do not mix private grievances with corporate business." "Sit down, Julian," I said, keeping my tone smooth, controlled, and icy cold. Bradford stepped forward, trying to force a confident posture despite his visible sweating. "Look, Chairman Cole, you can't just destroy a multi-million-dollar hedge fund over a girl. Let's be reasonable adults here. Chloe was just a casual fling anyway. I don't care about her." "Bradford?" Chloe shrieked, her voice cracking in utter disbelief as she whipped her head toward him. "What did you just call me? You told me last night that you loved me. You said you were going to buy me a penthouse in Manhattan." "Shut your mouth, Chloe," Bradford snapped aggressively, glaring at her with raw frustration. "I only brought you around to flex on social media. Do you really think a guy like me would marry a penniless nobody from the outer boroughs? You're completely delusional." Chloe gasped loudly, clutching her chest as tears streamed down her cheeks, ruining her heavy makeup. "You lied to me. You used me. Enough." I slammed my hand down firmly on the glass table. The loud echo instantly cut off their shouting match, plunging the entire boardroom into dead silence. "I am not interested in your pathetic romantic squabbles." I reached into my leather briefcase, pulled out a thick, red-bound financial audit document and tossed it sliding across the polished glass table right into Julian Vance's hands. "What is this, Chairman Cole?" Julian asked nervously, opening the cover with shaking fingers. "That is the forensic accounting report completed by Cole Enterprises at 6 o'clock this morning," I explained, leaning back in my chair while resting my arms comfortably. Page 3 highlights $45 million in hidden offshore debt. Page 7 details systemic market fraud and falsified asset valuation reports submitted to federal regulators. Julian's face went completely deathly pale as he flipped frantically through the pages. This is impossible. How did you get access to our private internal ledgers?" "Cole Enterprise Holdings holds 40% of your firm's primary corporate bonds, Julian," Victoria stated clearly, stepping to my left side with a tablet in hand. "As your primary bondholder, we exercised our legal right to conduct a full emergency audit 2 hours ago." "Julian," I said, locking my eyes on the older man, "your request for a $50 million emergency lifeline credit is officially denied." "Denied?" Julian cried out, collapsing heavily back into his leather armchair. "No, Chairman Cole, please. If you deny that credit line, our primary creditors will seize our physical assets by 3 o'clock today. We will be completely insolvent before the stock market closes." "You are already insolvent, Julian," I replied without a single drop of pity in my voice. "You built a castle out of fake financial reports, and your son paraded around town pretending to be a billionaire on borrowed time." "Dad, do something," Bradford panicked, grabbing his father's jacket sleeve frantically. "Call our lawyers. Call our investors. Call our lawyers." Julian roared, turning around and slapping Bradford hard across the face. The sharp crack echoed through the spacious room. "You stupid, arrogant brat. You brought this on us. You dragged this gold digger to our firm's most critical signing meeting. You insulted the most powerful man in the state." Bradford stumbled backward, holding his red, swollen cheek in absolute shock. "Dad, I didn't know. You ruined us." Julian sobbed, burying his face in his trembling hands right at the table. "Our family is ruined. Federal auditors will be at our front doors by tomorrow morning." Chloe stood frozen in the center of the room, her body shaking violently as the reality of her situation crashed over her like a tidal wave. She looked at Julian weeping in his chair, then at Bradford cowering on the floor, and finally at me sitting at the head of the $80 billion empire. "He's broke," Chloe whispered, her voice trembling in horror as she stared at Bradford. "You don't have any money? You're completely broke?" "Of course I'm broke, you stupid woman." Bradford spat out bitterly from the carpet, looking up at her with pure venom. "My entire family budget was frozen 2 days ago. I used my dad's emergency company card just to pay for that rooftop dinner last night. No, this can't be happening." Chloe wept, dropping to her knees on the soft carpet floor. She turned her tear-stained face toward me, her eyes filled with frantic, desperate begging. Ethan, please look at me. I was tricked. Bradford brainwashed me. He promised me things that weren't real." "Nobody tricked you into calling me a penniless loser, Chloe," I said, looking down at her from my chair with total emotional detachment. "Nobody forced you to throw my promise ring into a glass of water to laugh with a bully." "I made a mistake, Ethan," she sobbed, crawling forward on her knees toward the head of the table. "I still love you. I've always loved you. I didn't care about the money when we were together. Please remember our 3 years. Forgive me, Marcus," I called out calmly, completely ignoring her pathetic pleading. "Clear the boardroom. I have an empire to run." "Right away, Chairman," Marcus barked sternly. 4 heavily armed security guards stepped forward instantly, grabbing Bradford by his arms and lifting Julian up from his chair to escort them out. Marcus grabbed Chloe gently but firmly by her elbow, pulling her back from my desk. "Ethan, please, don't do this to me," Chloe shrieked hysterically as Marcus dragged her toward the heavy double doors. "I love you, Ethan." I turned my back to them, picking up my gold pen to sign the official corporate foreclosure order on Vance Financial. The heavy double doors slammed shut behind them, cutting off her desperate screams forever. A torrential downpour battered the high glass walls of my private estate in the Hamptons. Thunder rumbled in the distance, echoing across the Atlantic shoreline. I stood in the warmth of my expansive study, sipping black coffee as my tablet displayed the evening headlines. Vance Financial had officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy at 3 o'clock, and federal authorities had taken Bradford Vance into custody for securities fraud. Chairman Cole, Marcus said, stepping softly into the room, his voice grim. We have a situation at the outer security gate. Did journalists bypass the perimeter, Marcus? I asked without turning around from the window. No, sir, Marcus answered, holding a security monitor tablet out to me. It's Chloe Sterling. She's been standing in the storm outside the main gate for 2 hours. The front guard refused her entry, but she slipped past the automated barrier when a delivery vehicle exited. I looked down at the live security feed. Chloe stood in the center of my long marble driveway, soaking wet, her expensive designer dress clinging to her shivering body. Her hair was flattened against her face, and her makeup was completely washed away by the heavy rain. Shall I have the security team escort her off the grounds? Marcus asked, his hand hovering over his radio. No, I replied calmly, setting my coffee cup down on the desk. Get an umbrella, Marcus. I will speak to her myself. A minute later, Marcus held a large black umbrella over my head as we stepped out onto the wide, illuminated driveway. The icy rain lashed against the pavement, but I walked forward with slow, deliberate steps until I stood 10 feet away from her. As soon as Chloe saw me, she let out a loud, ragged sob and dropped heavily onto her knees right on the wet marble tiles. Ethan, she shrieked, her voice hoarse from crying in the storm. Ethan, oh my God, please hear me out. You shouldn't be on private property, Chloe, I said, my voice cutting through the sound of the falling rain, completely flat and devoid of anger. This is trespassing. I don't care, she wept hysterically, crawling forward on her knees across the cold stone, reaching her shaking, muddy hands toward my shoes. Call the police if you want. Have me arrested. Just let me talk to you for 5 minutes. I am listening, I said quietly, standing beneath the umbrella, looking down at her. Say what you came to say. I made a terrible mistake, Ethan. Chloe sobbed out, shivering violently as cold water dripped from her chin. Bradford tricked me. He lied to me about everything. He told me he was a billionaire. He told me you were holding me back from my real life. And he brainwashed me into saying those awful things at the restaurant. Bradford didn't force you to walk into that restaurant, Chloe, I pointed out coldly. He didn't force you to laugh when he mocked the size of my engagement ring. I was stupid, she screamed, slapping her own forehead in a fit of wild, desperate regret. I was blind and foolish. But I swear to you, Ethan, my love for you is real. For 3 years, I loved you. I loved the life we built together in that small apartment. I don't care about the $80 billion. I don't care about this estate. I just want my Ethan back. I looked down at her as she wept in the dirt and rain, feeling no surge of satisfaction, no heartbreak, and no desire for revenge. Only a quiet, profound sense of pity for a woman who had destroyed her own soul for illusions. Do you remember what you said to me on that rooftop terrace 3 days ago, Chloe? I asked, my voice steady and clear above the storm. Chloe looked up, her bloodshot eyes wide with frantic, terrified hope. Ethan, I didn't mean it. You told me I was a penniless loser, I reminded her softly. You said you were sick and tired of discount dinners, cheap gifts, and a man who smelled like engine oil. You told 200 people that I was just a temporary distraction while you waited for a real man to notice you. I was angry, she wailed, clutching her wet hands against her chest. I said those things because I was embarrassed. Please, Ethan, forgive me. I'll do anything. I'll kneel here all night. I'll beg on my hands and knees every day for the rest of my life. You aren't begging because you love me, Chloe, I stated with absolute clarity, looking directly into her eyes. You don't miss the mechanic who fixed your sister's car or supported your dreams. You miss the $80 billion fortune you realized you threw into the trash bin. That's not true, she shrieked, her voice cracking painfully. I love you. If I were still working at that garage in Brooklyn tonight, would you be standing in this rain begging for my forgiveness? I asked her simply, Chloe's mouth opened to speak, but no sound came out. Her jaw trembled violently as she stared up at me, completely unable to utter a single lie under my gaze. The silence between us stretched long and heavy, louder than the thunder above. "You have your answer," I said quietly, stepping backward away from her reaching arms. "The man who loved you unconditionally died on that rooftop terrace when you threw his ring into a glass of water. There is nothing left for you here." "Ethan, no. Don't leave me," Chloe screamed, trying to pull herself forward, but her wet dress weighed her down on the slick stone. "I have nowhere to go. My parents locked me out. My friends won't answer my calls. I have no money." "Then I suggest you learn how to rebuild your life from scratch," I replied, turning my back on her as Marcus kept the umbrella held firmly over my head. "Just like I had to do when you broke my heart." "Ethan!" Her hysterical screams echoed across the sprawling driveway as Marcus escorted me back toward the warm entrance doors of the estate. "Ethan!" I stepped inside the grand foyer, letting the heavy oak doors close shut behind me, permanently sealing out the sound of her crying. 6 months had passed since the night Vance's financial collapsed into complete ruin. I stood in the bright, high-tech auditorium of Cole Enterprise Holdings' flagship tower, adjusting the microphone attached to my crisp collar. High-definition television cameras lined the back of the room, broadcasting live to global financial networks. Beside me stood Victoria Thorne, holding an encrypted digital portfolio detailing our newest multi-billion-dollar initiative. "Are you ready for the keynote address, Ethan?" Victoria asked softly, offering a warm, confident smile as the broadcast countdown reached 10 seconds. "I am ready, Victoria," I replied, feeling a deep sense of purpose settle over me. "The future of Cole Enterprises starts today." The studio lights flared brightly, and I stepped up to the central glass podium, addressing the press corps and millions of viewers watching worldwide. "Good evening," I began, my voice carrying clearly across the international broadcast networks. "Today, Cole Enterprise Holdings is proud to announce the launch of our Global Green Energy Foundation. We are committing $15 billion towards sustainable clean energy infrastructure, public education, and community grants." Chairman Cole, a prominent financial journalist, called out from the front row, holding up a voice recorder. "Your foundation recently made headlines for funding complete university scholarships across New York. Can you comment on your selection process?" "Our mission is simple," I explained calmly into the microphone. "We invest in individuals of character, integrity, and genuine dedication. For instance, our flagship youth scholarship was recently awarded to Evelyn Sterling, an extraordinary young student who demonstrated true nobility of character during severe personal family hardship." Across town, inside a dimly lit Brooklyn diner, the wall-mounted television screen flickered with my live image. Chloe Sterling stood behind the greasy counter, wearing a faded, stained server apron over her worn civilian clothes. Her hands shook violently as she wiped down the sticky Formica counter, her tired eyes fixed on the television screen above the kitchen pass. "Hey, hurry up with those coffee refills, Chloe," the diner manager barked sharply from the dishwashing station, snapping his fingers at her without looking up. "Table 4 has been waiting for 5 minutes. I'm sorry, boss," Chloe whispered hoarsely, her voice raspy and exhausted. She wiped a smudge of grease from her cheek with the back of her trembling hand, trying desperately to swallow the painful lump in her throat. "I'm going right now." A customer sitting at the counter adjusted his coat, glancing up at the television screen where my face filled the display. "Hey, isn't that Chairman Ethan Cole? The guy who took over the entire Manhattan energy market last fall?" "Yeah, that's him," another customer replied, sipping his black coffee. "He's worth $80 billion now. Did you hear about that crazy story from 6 months ago? Some shallow girl dumped him when he was pretending to be a mechanic, right before he stepped back into his inheritance." Chloe froze in place, clutching the heavy glass coffee pot tightly against her apron as her face burned with absolute, soul-crushing humiliation. "Wait, seriously?" The first customer laughed mockingly, shaking his head in total disbelief. "Who could possibly be that stupid? She gave up a billionaire life just to end up with some fake rich fraud who ended up in federal prison. Total idiot," the second man agreed, chuckling. Her name went viral online, too. Every high society club in Manhattan blacklisted her completely. Nobody in corporate finance will ever hire her. I heard she has to work 2 retail shifts just to pay rent on a tiny basement apartment in Queens. Tears dripped down Chloe's face, stinging her tired, bloodshot eyes as she listened to total strangers mock her ruin. Her high society friends had long since blocked her phone number, scrubbing her completely from their social media feeds the moment news of her behavior went viral across Manhattan. My voice continued to resonate from the television speaker above her. True wealth is not measured by designer labels, luxury cars, or social status. It is measured by honor, loyalty, and how we treat others when we think no one is watching. Did you hear what he said on TV, Chloe? The diner manager shouted out again, walking over to the counter with a heavy stack of dirty dishes. That guy's a real gentleman. You could learn a thing or two about hard work from listening to him instead of staring at the screen all night. Yes, sir, Chloe choked out, her voice barely audible as tears overflowed, splashing onto the polished glass of the coffee pitcher in her hands. She stared up at my smiling image beside Victoria on the broadcast screen. 6 months ago, she held my hand in a small Brooklyn apartment. 6 months ago, I would have given her the entire world, built an empire for her, and protected her for the rest of my life. Now, she was a ghost in the city, paying off endless debts while I led a global revolution. Back in the grand auditorium, the press conference concluded to thunderous applause from the audience. Marcus stepped forward with his security detail, forming a protective perimeter as Victoria and I walked toward the private executive exit. That was a masterclass presentation, Chairman, Victoria said, walking beside me with a proud, bright smile. The global markets are already responding with unprecedented enthusiasm. This is just the beginning, Victoria, I replied, stepping out into the evening skyline air where my armored Maybach waited at the curb. I looked up at the vast Manhattan skyline, feeling the night breeze against my face. The humble mechanic who sought true love had survived the storm, and the chairman had claimed his rightful place. I stepped into the back seat of the vehicle, letting the solid, heavy door close, leaving the ghosts of the past permanently behind as we drove forward into the future. The gentle ocean breeze brushed against my face as I stood on the marble terrace balcony of my coastal estate, watching the golden sunset paint the horizon in brilliant shades of amber and purple. The quiet rustle of the waves below filled the air, carrying a deep sense of calm that I had not felt in years. You look remarkably peaceful tonight, Ethan, Victoria said softly, stepping out through the open glass doors onto the balcony. She wore a simple, elegant dark dress, carrying 2 crystal glasses of vintage champagne. Her warm brown eyes reflected the soft evening light as she walked over to stand beside me at the railing. I actually am peaceful, Victoria, I replied, taking one of the glasses from her hand and offering a genuine smile. For the first time in 4 years, my mind isn't heavy with doubt. No lingering regrets about how everything unfolded with Chloe or Vance Financial? Victoria asked, turning her body slightly to look directly into my eyes. None at all, I said firmly, taking a small sip from my glass. When Chloe threw that ring into a glass of water 6 months ago, I thought my entire world had shattered into pieces. I felt completely betrayed, embarrassed, and hollowed out. It was a cruel thing to do, Ethan, Victoria remarked quietly, her tone filled with sincere empathy. You gave her 3 years of total honesty, affection, and sacrifice. She threw all of it away the moment she saw a flashy car and a quick promise of status. And that was the greatest lesson of my life, I admitted, turning to rest my arm against the balcony railing. Looking back now, I realized that her betrayal didn't destroy me, it liberated me. It stripped away a comfortable lie and forced me to see reality. You were testing the world, Ethan, Victoria said, her eyes softening as she stepped closer to me. Your grandfather always warned you that wealth draws parasites, but you insisted on finding out if someone could love you purely for who you are. I was naive back then. I laughed softly under my breath, shaking my head at the memory of my past self. I thought humility meant hiding who I was completely, but hiding my identity didn't protect me from deceit. It just invited someone into my life who only valued superficial appearances. Chloe didn't fail your test because you were poor, Ethan, Victoria stated clearly, her voice steady and resonant. She failed because her heart was inherently greedy and shallow. If you had revealed your billions to her on day one, she still wouldn't have loved you. She would have just loved your bank account. You're right. I agreed, looking out at the endless expanse of the ocean. True worth is never determined by someone else's arrogance or greed. A person who doesn't respect you when you have nothing will never truly respect you when you have everything. So, what happens now, Executive Chairman Cole? Victoria asked, a playful, spark-filled smile appearing on her face. Now that the corporate debt markets are stabilized, Vance Financial is liquidated, and your green energy foundation is launched globally, now I build a legacy that actually matters. I answered, looking back at her with absolute clarity and conviction. No more hiding behind fake identities. No more second-guessing the motives of the people standing beside me. And who do you see standing beside you in this new chapter? Victoria asked gently, raising her champagne glass toward mine. I reached out, placing my hand over hers as our fingers intertwined naturally on the cold crystal glass. The only person who stayed loyal to me through every single step of the journey. The woman who warned me when I was blind, supported me when I was down, and stood by me when I took back my name. Victoria's breath caught slightly in her throat, a faint flush appearing on her cheeks as she looked into my eyes. I've been in your corner for over 15 years, Ethan. I never plan on leaving. I know, I said softly, my voice filled with deep appreciation. It took a storm for me to see who was holding the umbrella all along. Victoria raised her glass slightly higher, her eyes shining with quiet joy. To a future built on real trust, unwavering loyalty, and unbroken strength. To a future unbroken, I repeated, clinking my glass against hers with a sharp, resonant chime that echoed softly across the quiet terrace. We stood together on a high balcony, sipping our champagne as the last rays of the sun dipped beneath the vast ocean horizon. The shadows of my past, the rooftop taunts, the heartless insults, and the painful betrayal faded completely into the darkness behind us. I turned my body away from the dark roads of yesterday, holding Victoria's hand firmly in mine. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from my identity or hiding from the world. I was ready to step forward into the light and write the greatest chapter of my life.